Hey everyone, this is Chess Coach Aaron, and I'm here for our third game of Tartakower Defense Blitz. I've been playing a lot of 3 minute, as I said before, instead of 5 minute. I don't know why I've been doing a lot more to 3 minutes, maybe because I get more games in that way. So I'm not really worried about after the opening, because 3 minutes can get really spicy and go a little crazy. It's a lot of fun, and actually this was a very short game, so I'll probably run through the whole game real quick. I think it was 20 moves. But we're just here to talk about the beginnings, the Tartakower defense against the Queen's Gambit. And we just really want to focus on this opening. We want to get this down for beginners. The Tartakower defense is a great, solid opening for beginners to learn in order to get all the pieces happy early on in a chess game. Very important. And make their king safe at the same time. Why not? All right, let's jump right into some moves. And d4, d5. c4, asking, do you want the Queen's Gambit? Will you accept it? I said no. I'm making d5 a rock. I'm protecting it with my e-pawn. You can also do c6, of course, but I chose my e-pawn. And they attacked my d-pawn, put more pressure on it. I played my knight, and I defend the d-pawn. Now, many times you have bishop g5 might be the number one move, but not by much. This is actually very close to the number one move, too. White is getting some pieces out of the way of the king side, and they're trying to protect and lock down some of the center so there's no tricks later. They're actually making a decision about their bishop later. Perhaps they want to see what black's going to do with their bishop. I could play bishop b4 after all, maybe to play bishop d2. I could try to put my bishop on d6, and maybe it'll do something else. Or they could put their bishop on f4 later. A lot of choices. But maybe they're waiting to see what black does here. All right. Well, I'm just playing the Tartakower, and a Tartakower basically is very solid. I'm not trying to get too spicy early on. I just want a solid d5. I want my piece of the center, and I want to be able to castle very quickly. So I'm just playing bishop b7 until further notice. Later on, I could always move to d6 or b4 as needed, or go along this diagonal once I move my knight. So now white's making another decision. Again, even when I've played bishop b7, there's no bishop here. There's no pin. I still play my bishop here. Many times white still plays bishop g5 after, and still just puts the bishop there. Okay. Many times I've had bishop f4 after I put my bishop here. They have their bishop aiming at my c-pawn. That does happen. But once in a while you also get e3, and this is an important difference and possibility. They're basically locking their dark squared bishop on the inside of this pawn chain. That means the dark squares inside, on the queen side, inside this pawn chain over here for white, are actually very strong. There's really no worries because the dark squared bishop's inside this pawn chain. Now, normally, when the bishop's on g5 or f4, and you play this pawn chain, white needs to worry about these dark squares a little bit. Right? They have to make sure, since their bishop's on the outside of this pawn chain, they have to make sure the dark squares remain safe. And this is important. I just want to show you why. Again, instead of e3, I've had some players play bishop g5, and this type of thing has happened a couple times. Normal Tartakower moves. I castle. They play e3 now, and notice, their bishop's outside this pawn chain, not on the inside. And I asked the bishop a question, bishop backs up, and now I played a Tartakower with b6. Here, white makes some decisions. Many times after b6, we talk about white relieving the pressure and capturing. Why do they capture? Well, they're trying to make b6 perhaps look like it's a wasted move. The bishop's coming out through this diagonal, but once they capture, and we capture back, our bishop now has other ways to go, and it makes b6 maybe look not as necessary. Well, b6 is still useful. It supports c5. So I'm not worried about that. But another reason why many white players capture is because they don't want to give you a move. They don't want to play bishop e2 or the more normal, this is the most normal, bishop t3. And if they play bishop t3, well, you have the option. I don't anymore, but it's still a very good move. I used to when I started playing Tartakower. I would capture on c4, making them lose a move. One move for the bishop, and then the capture 2 moves. Then I would still play my bishop over to b7 and have this beautiful diagonal, and their bishop be aiming at a very strong pawn. Many times I would back up a little bit later in the game and put it on this diagonal again, but we're just talking about this position. Black can still play c5, knight can go to d7, and here, by the way, you have your choice of trying to get e5 or c5. You don't want to get both. but you want one of these two pawns to go forward and challenge their center. So after you move your knight to d7, you can try to start to work both, but you have a beautiful bishop and you made him lose a turn. All right, this is an important distinction because when we play b6, boop, now in this particular position, their bishop, they haven't spent a move, their bishop's on the inside, versus in this position, the bishop's on the outside. Notice the difference. We play b6, and they still haven't moved their bishop. In the line we played before in this game, they actually have not brought their bishop out. And when I play b6, their bishop's already on d3. I never made them lose move the bishop twice, basically. I like to keep the tension, keep the ability to capture. And yes, you do get an extra move, perhaps, and it's still a great way to play, but I don't do that necessarily. But in this line, and again, I'm just going to show you, where the bishop's outside, here's what can happen. I've had a few white players, and this is what white has to be careful about. They want to protect this pawn. They don't want to make their bishop move twice, so they want to play bishop d3, and if I capture, they'll move the bishop again. So they protect the pawn with a pawn. They decide they don't want to capture, which is very normal. A lot of people play this against me. But they make this bad move, boop, b3, and here's what can happen. Now the knight's not protected. Suddenly our bishop can attack this knight on c3. It's a pin, and not only pin, but we're threatening to take it with check. So they don't have time to take our knight. Our knight's now pinned. It's not an absolute pin. No, there's an absolute pin. But they don't have time to take on f6 because we'll take on c3 with check, and we'll win a piece. We'll capture back at f6 after we do the check. That's a piece for black. So they have to protect the knight. One of the more common ways, they move the rook out over, right? Boop. They could move the queen too, sure. And now, thanks to our doing h6 and this extra little move, one of the reasons why I love it is make the escape square, but once in a while you got to keep white honest. And I'm able to break this pin now, because I moved my bishop to create my own pin. Whoops, my own pin. And we're breaking this pin because now we can play knight e4 safely and pile on our pin, pile on the pin that we have. And many times, most of the time, they'll play bishop g3. We throw our knight onto e4, and black's already doing fantastic. Yes, you have to be careful of this windiness in this area for sure. Keep your eyes posted, but you're already winning some material. And you have great places for your other piece to go. The only thing is your king might be a little windy, so you have to pay extra attention to that. But black's already doing very well. The computer likes black here, and I like black here. More importantly, because I'm playing this position. So if they bring their bishop outside of this pawn chain, they really can't play an early b3. Don't be afraid to move the bishop again and make that pin. This is important just to understand, because in this position, white made the decision to keep their bishop on the inside. So there's no shenanigans, no tricks with me going to get this knight if they play an early b3. But I'm just pointing this out. This also allows the bishop to come out earlier, allows them to castle earlier. Good stuff for white. But now this bishop becomes a problem. Where is it going to go? It's harder to make happy, right? It's on the inside of the pawn chain. Because of this, many times white switches over to trying to get e4 in as soon as possible to make this bishop happy again. All right, let's see what the Tartakower did against an early e3 where they don't move the dark squared bishop. And I castled. They put their bishop on d3. I could have taken, perhaps, and then tried to play b6, right? That's a very good possibility, right? We have, where is it? Capture b6, and you could go into these Tartakower lines. Bishop would be very strong. Knight here. We've talked about this already. c5 or e5. You could put the rook here to support the e5. Good stuff. I usually don't, again, make captures and break the tension unless I see something I really like, and that was a good position. I used to play that. So I played b6 now. And they captured. They don't want me to get that free move, I suppose. I capture back. They castled. One of the reasons why white plays an early e3. Now I play bishop b7, and I'm playing my full Tartakower. Notice, though, my pawn is not on h6. I haven't attacked any bishop. That means this diagonal might be aiming at h7, but also at a pawn. So I just have to keep my eyes open on the pawn a little bit more. It's not on h6. All right, but kind of know what White's plan is, and that is to get an e4. And they can accomplish this a bunch of different ways. They can try to accomplish this. They can put the rook on e1, give support. Queen can go to c2, give support. Queen can go to e2, give support. Again, they're trying to get an e4 to make this bishop happy. What is Black's plan? Well, we already know it from the Tartakower. Our knight on b to d7, pawn to c5, perhaps rooks go to certain spots, and knight can still go to e4, even though there's not a bishop here. And notice, if we don't have our bishop fighting their bishop's stuck in here, later on we could always go to d6. You want to make your pieces better. And then we're aiming at their h2 pawn, their area over there. So we have knight, bishop, knight. Once our piece out of the way, our queen might come over at some point. We have f5 if our knight goes to e4. And we also have c5 with rook over. So we have a lot of things we can do. We already know how to make our pieces better. But one of the things when you're playing chess is not only do you have your plans, but you have your opponent's plans. And the same for White. If they're going to try to get e4 in, okay, or they can try to slow our plans down and expand on the queen side. Play b4, slowing down our c5, maybe giving their bishop other places to develop. Even though getting in e4 at the right time will free them up. So, let's see what happened a little bit more. And they decided to play rook e1. Now again, they could have played queen c2. Against this, I probably simply play an early c5. There's no bishop putting pressure down on my knight in this position, so my bishop is easy to protect and to capture as needed. Can still move my knight. I even have ideas of knight c6 instead, or knight still goes to b to d7. So I kind of like this, and it makes it slow down a little bit for them to play e4, because if both pawns get traded in the center, Black's pieces are excellently placed, right? We can still get our knight out with a threat over here. Our bishops have places to go. I love making arrows. All right, let's get back to this. So again, they played rook e1. They could have played queen c2. They could have played queen e2. Here, I probably just put knight to e4. Or you could still play rook e8 instead, or even c5. You actually have a lot of choices of the queen e2. But they played rook e1, which is a little bit different. It doesn't put the queen on this line. It puts a rook, so they have an extra major piece aiming at the center. Here, I do not want them to get in e4. They're prepared now. They have 3 supporters. They can play e4. I only have 3 things aiming at e4, so they can play it safely. Here, I actually played e4, and that is to kind of jam them up and not let them play that so quickly. And everything is safe. Boop, boop. Right? Thanks to this strong bishop, I'm still going to perhaps play f5 at the right time and maybe even go forward if needed. My bishop can still readjust, and I still have a knight that can go places. Pawn can expand, rook's over, so I got a lot of good stuff still. But more importantly, not only am I making my plans work, but I'm also trying to slow down their plan, and this is important. All right, they played queen c2, putting a lot of pressure. They have 3 attackers on my knight and only have 2 defenders. Zoom. Here I played f5. I'm not afraid to play f5 in a lot of these Tartakower positions, even when I've already played h6 and make these squares weak. That is one thing when you don't play h6. Moving your f-pawn, it doesn't make it as weak over here. But that said, with this battery set up and my pawn not moved, that means if my knight moves, I would lose that pawn. Here's another reason why I throw up the f-pawn. I'm trying to block up this diagonal. I don't want to lose a pawn. Why would I want to? All right. Once you play f5, though, you don't have f6 pawn. You can't go backwards to chase away their knight if it goes to e5. That's exactly what they did. Very common. And here I'm just going to complete my development and threaten or aim for their knight. At the right time, I might need to, move it or remove it. All right. Hold on one sec. All right. So we're talking about I can still play my knight and aim for their pawn, their knight rather, that's in the sweet center on e5. I'm still thinking about c5, and notice how strong this knight still is. It's very strong. It's kind of slowing down their progress. And are they actually going to play f3? Well, that's kind of what I expect at this point, chase this knight, but that kind of leaves now their e-pawn a little weak, and they're starting to open up the center a little bit. Well, here's the thing about opening up the center as usual. You want to make sure your king's safe, and you want to make sure all your pieces are active, and you want to make sure your back rank is strong. That usually means communication between the rooks. So white does not have this communication, and not all their pieces are developed and happy and ready to go for an open center. They still haven't accomplished anything with this dark squared bishop yet, right? Even if they're going to try to get f3 and perhaps e4 to make this bishop happy, they're still further behind than black is. This is important because if you can open up the center, in this position, black might be slightly better to use this open center, perhaps. Maybe white should actually get their king out of the center first before they try to open up the center too. Maybe take a moment and move their king to the side. All right, let's get a couple more moves in. I developed my knight, and they did play f3. Not a big fan of this move. But they are asking my knight a question. Hey, knight, what you doing on my side of the board? And I do have the escape trade. I could just take on c3. But again, I don't like to make trades unless I feel I'm getting something for it. And I could run back to f6, but that would just lose a pawn, so that's not too good. And notice, when I go forward with my pieces, I usually make sure I have decent retreats just in case. Again, if I had to trade, I would on c3, but I just go back to d6 and 1, 2 protectors, still aiming to slow them down on e4, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, so a lot of trades might happen. And still can play c5 with pressure on their knight. They can't capture, right? Because they have to protect the knight. And I have the ability to put pressure on this d pawn, which makes it even harder for them to go forward if they let me get in c5. All right, let's see what happened. And they went forward. Not a good move here. They probably should play b4, trying to slow my plans down. Or maybe, like I was saying before, maybe a safe king h1 before they try to go forward. And this is important because when they go forward, boom, it's not just a pawn on d4 that's not protected, but it's the square. Nothing's protecting the square. And though a lot of stuff's in the way, can you guys see that my queen can take or get to eventually land on d4 with check? And that is important because, again, how many protectors do they have of e4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have a lot. But we have 4 attackers. But if my queen got to d4 with check, it's only 5 attackers. And 5 attackers with 4 defenders means you're winning something. All right, let's see what happened. Boom, 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 boom. Important step, right? This knight is in the way of the queen reaching d4. Got to remove it. Notice I'm not worried about winning a pawn because after I do a couple more captures, check, I'm actually going to win a piece. And now you say, Coach Aaron, you only have 2 attackers and they have 2 defenders. You're not winning anything. Well, actually, this rook is only thing defending the back rank. This is in the way. This rook's not helping. And notice, f1 is going to be a checkmating square because I'm giving them check right now. If they block, oh, I will take that bishop. So they scooch to the side, and suddenly f1 means that rook on e1 can't leave. Did they see this? Well, I'm taking my piece, attacking the queen. I want to see if they're going to capture. And I guess they did not see it, because after I captured back, they realized, oops. And that does happen. I mean, again, this is 3-minute blitz. But really, we're talking about the opening. And white probably opened up the center a little too early. A little too early in the situation, and black, again, was doing fine. But just be ready, because there are times people are going to leave the dark squared bishop on the inside of this pawn chain. They're not going to bring it out to f4, g5. And a Tartakower is prepared for this. All right, guys, that was fantastic for the opening. I hope you play some Tartakower. Let's try to get one quick joke in, and then we're done. Why did the caveman never go to the moon? That's a tough one. Pretty sure they saw the moon and they said, ooh, I would love to go to the moon, play some chess up there where it's quiet. But again, why did the caveman never go to the moon? Well, the answer is they didn't know how to plan it. All right, guys, this is Coach Aaron out. I hope you play some Tartakower. Peace.